Our vision is that down the road, if you want to learn how to referee football or hockey or lacrosse, you're going to spend your time and energy at Ref Masters University. That is going to be the premier place to go to learn the craft and how to be a good soccer referee or how to be a good baseball umpire. And so for me, excuse me, the thing that I really get excited about with Ref Masters is seeing the feedback from the community. They are learning and they're growing and they're getting better. That's the whole point of what we do every day. They want to get better.
That is just something I'm so proud of. Again, don't say this in a trite way. I'm so proud just to be part of a group of people, a community that are really looking out for the right things. And that's what fuels us every day. We say feedback is our fuel at Ref Masters. So hearing and seeing those things is really just what keeps us going. So there's the whole coming of age story. We like movies and books that are about coming of age, right? It's this concept of Bildung. But coming of age and continuing that growth and maturation, it doesn't end at 18 or 20 or 30 or when you have your first kid or when your parents are no more. It continues on and on through life. So yeah, my answer to this is, why is it worth continuing to learn anything? And I think the answer is because it's part of our own story. We all see ourselves as the center of the story, our life. And if we don't learn, we're not telling a good story, right? We're losing that opportunity to mature and to transform and to continue to evolve as people. And maybe one of the challenges is that sometimes in officiating, it doesn't happen as much as it could.
But today, just pull that app up on your phone if you have 5 minutes, and that can be like we can work that language of the game muscle repeatedly, and that's gonna continuously improve our rules knowledge and our mechanics knowledge. Because if we're all talking about it the same way, then there's just no chance that we're not improving the craft as a whole. So that's how I see Ref Masters contributing to that continuous education.
And now, Season 2, Episode 5, Letter E, Education. Join hosts Dana Pappas and Nate Acosta with special guests Kane Fitzgerald, Brandon Cruse, James Williams, and Sony Tiwari.
Welcome back to the From A to Zebra podcast. I'm Dana Pappas here with my co-host Nate Acosta. This episode is a special edition as we feature another letter E for season 2 of the podcast. So we've got a special edition that we're excited about, and we'll get right into it.
On this episode, we are talking about education, and our guests are a group of officials from the professional ranks who are paying it forward to officials at all levels through a platform that provides education and a sense of community.
Our guests on this episode are quite an all-star lineup. We have with us today NFL official Brandon Cruse, former NBA referee and current head of NBA replay Kane Fitzgerald, CEO of Ref Masters Sony Tiwari, and last but not least, NBA referee James Williams, or Gucci as he is better known.
Hey, gentlemen, welcome to the show and thanks for joining us. Really, can each of you kind of tell us about your officiating careers and how and why you got started, how long you've been officiating, and how you got to the highest level? Sony, we've got a follow-up question for you. Kane, go ahead and give us the start.
Sure. How I got started. My father has been a referee in the state of New Jersey for over 50 years. So when I got started with him when I was 17, 18 years old, right around there, and I refereed as many games as possible, probably 300 to 400, maybe even more games per year between AAU, CYO, men's league, you name it, we refed it, and we did it together. And I just, I had a great start. Really, really blessed to have someone teach me how to do it at such a young age. And then a lot of the dominoes fell into place. I was in the right place, right time. Got seen working some New York, New Jersey Pro-Am stuff. Eventually got into the G League at 20. I was doing a couple years of college ball, kind of at the same time as that. And then I got hired in the NBA at 28. Did 13 years on the court there. I worked my way into the finals at year 10. And then I was asked to come off the court and run the NBA's replay center. And that's where I'm at now, starting my third season doing that and enjoying a new challenge.
Well, let's switch over to football.
All right. I tell the story that when I went to college, I had a vitamin S deficiency, and everybody gets really concerned with what I'm about to say about a health issue, but it's not health at all. I mean, well, maybe it was a health issue, but I didn't have any strength, speed, or size. And so my athletic career quickly was over when I went to college. There was no way I was going to compete at a level that would be, that would work for me, right? I mean, if you're going to do something, you want to be good. Well, I didn't have any of those physical attributes to be good enough. So officiating is what I found. So I'm in engineering school as a college kid, and I worked my first game just down the road from my college. It was a freshman football game, and I'll never forget calling my dad and being all fired up about officiating. I'm one of those people that was immediately passionate about our craft. And I was so fired up, and I'm a 19-year-old naive kid, and he says, well, how much did they pay? And I said, $20, and he says, son, you better stay in school. I never looked back after that, though. From then on, I just wanted to work as many games as I possibly could at whatever level I could find. It took me like 10 years, though, to kind of figure out how to navigate the national officiating scene, if you will. So that's trying to get into Division I college football. Worked a little small college before that, but then about 10 years in, I started going to camps, made my way through various Division I conferences. I was in the Big 12 for about 6 years, and then the NFL hired me in 2022. And I'll never forget 2022 because my number as an official is 22. So that, I don't know how that worked, but that worked out great. I am probably the luckiest official ever, just with all the opportunities people have given me for some reason. I just feel very fortunate to be involved. Speaking of fortunate, I feel fortunate to be here and be involved with the great guys at Ref Masters too. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. I too, 3S's were strong, slow, and subpar.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could use those to describe my athleticism. I know that.
James.
Yeah, again, thanks for having us on. James Williams just finished my 15th year in the NBA regular season. I started officiating like many people, just started on the college ranks. When I was a freshman in college, was really low on money quickly. Realized, after you pay for those books the freshman year, I was like, wow, this is way more expensive than people tell you. So I needed a job. I saw a call out for referees, was always, into sports, passionate about sports, figured it couldn't be that difficult. So I signed up. They were paying $6 a game in 1997 at Purdue University, which I thought was a lot of money. It's like, wow, they're paying you $6 an hour to referee a game. That's pretty cool. So I signed up, and quite quickly I learned it was a lot harder than I anticipated. But like Brandon, like Kane, kind of caught the bug and just stuck with it. So I was fortunate. A lot of people helped me out. I'm not going to get into all of that. It will take forever. But essentially, after I graduated from Purdue in 2001, instead of going to law school like I had planned, I decided I was going to try refereeing and see how that worked out. So I moved to Atlanta after graduation because that's where we were told if you want to referee and learn the system and learn and get opportunities, Atlanta was the place to be. Did that, moved down there, and under the tutelage of John Guthrie, met Kane early on. And so we kind of went through this journey we went all over the Southeast, places you've never heard of, schools you've never heard of. We would drive 6-7 hours one way for $100, $150. But that's how we learned the craft. So got hired in 2010. And so here I am from 1997, 8 years later, in my 15th season in the NBA. So it's been a blessing. It's been fun. It's been exciting. It worked out for me.
That's awesome. James, it sounds like you and I actually got started in this officiating world in the same year, 1997. So I don't know where all of that time goes. And it's weird when you're like, we've done this for 28 years, but we're only like 35. So it's really
Exactly.
strange. We were prodigies. It's really cool. I'm proud of us.
Yeah. Benjamin Button. We
Yes,
age backwards,
we're absolutely, we are Benjamin Buttoning for sure. I'm gonna believe that. It's funny. I used to say at like 20 years, I go, gosh, 20 years, I must have started this when I was 9, and people used to kind of believe it. Now they're like, yeah, you're old. Just stop trying to fool us. So it's all right. I'm embracing that now. So Sony, CEO of Ref Masters, we're kind of asking you this question separately because your background's a little bit different than the other guests. Your career has been in higher education, economic, and community development. So can you tell us about your background before you started hanging out with the other people on this episode?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to pick me out from the group. Which one is not like the others? I wonder which one's not a referee. I get picked out very quickly. As much as I try to wear referee gear and maybe have a little bit of stolen valor with all my ref master stuff and all of that. But real quick, thanks so much for having us on. This is really great. Been looking forward to it. I've been a big fan of the podcast you've been doing. Season 1 was great, and we're just excited to be part of season 2.
Thank you.
My background is in education, as you mentioned. I've always been passionate about helping people learn. It's not that teachers actually impart knowledge. Teachers create conditions for people to self-discover and to learn. And I just think being part of that process has been so awesome. So I started in education, ended up in corporate training, worked at a lot of tech companies, startups, fast-growing companies. And then I was connected to James and Kane from a mutual friend a little more than 2 years ago. And in my first conversation with them, they were talking about athletes can use all of this technology to get better. Why can't referees? I remember that question. I was like, that's a pretty good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know enough about officiating yet. So it was a no-brainer from there. I'm really passionate about sports, even though my knowledge is much less than the rest of the others on this call. Love technology, love education, and Ref Masters trying to bring all three together. So here I am.
Love it. I've been around officials since 1997. I've never officiated a game a day in my life, but once it's in your DNA, you're part of the family. You got to advocate for them, what you're doing as an advocacy role. And I think that once you understand what they need and you fight for them, I don't think it matters, to be quite honest with you. So you and I are the two that are standing out on this, but we're wearing our gear and we're trying to look the part. So I can appreciate that.
Well,
Exactly. And they keep trying to get me on the court and on the field. One of these days it might happen.
There you
but
go.
It's something we talk about a lot.
It's happening.
Yeah.
It's got.
You
I
know,
had him.
and
I had him fired up. I had him fired up a couple days ago. He's like, I'm ready to officiate. I'm done. I'm ready to officiate. So we're gonna get him.
Nice.
We are going to get him.
You heard it
Absolutely.
here. This is going on the internet. So you heard it. He said he's ready. So it's time. It's time, Sony. You're doing it.
Well, and the biggest thing that I caught from you is the fact that you're wanting to use a technology that I think athletes are using, and I don't know that officials have truly tapped into, the technology. Yeah, we've got film review and the NBA and NFL and pro leagues have started some really cool things. We, at the NCAA level are starting to improve some things. But I mean, really, when there's somebody, an outside entity that wants to come in and help officials on the tech side, I think that's the biggest gain for all officials. So we appreciate you, Sony, for that.
Absolutely.
Hey, so now that we have introduced ourselves, tell us about Ref Masters. How did we get started? Whose idea was it? And what was the purpose and mission?
James, why don't you take that one? You tell it so well.
Well, Kane and I came up with Ref Masters. We really came up with this like around the bubble time when everybody was situated at home, right? And the true story is Kane and I should be billionaires by now, actually, if we're honest, and if we had money when we were younger. So we went all over the Southeast to referee these small college games all over the place. So when you got 6 hours to fill on these drives, you just talk. And one of the things we did, we were always coming up with ideas. And back in the day, this would have been early 2000s, one of the things that irked us, if you remember Super Walmarts, right? They still have Super Walmarts, but things have changed now the way we buy stuff, right? Amazon, everything's a click away. Well, that wasn't around in 2000, 2001 because there was no smartphones. But what used to irk me is when you go to Walmart, there'd be 50 cash registers and only like 4 of them were open out of the 50. Absolutely drove me nuts. And so we were like, there's got to be a better way to do this. So we had this thing, we were like, well, why can't people just scan their own items within their cart, put it in their cart, and then as they go, pay by credit card, so there's no cashier. There's no need for a cashier. The carts would have their own bags. You're bagging and scanning as you go. We had a name, right, Fitz? We called it Checkway. Checkway. So Checkway was going to be the future of how people bought stuff. You no longer had to wait in this long, arduous line. You did it as you went. Companies would save tons of money. You didn't have to pay for cashiers. The consumers would be like, oh, I don't have to worry about these lines. So we had Checkway as an idea back in 2003. All right, you want to talk about the other one? 8 or 9, probably after the
Yeah.
smartphone.
Yeah, so when James and we were on those trips, we basically had the idea for Bluetooth. We called it UE, UWE, Universal Wireless Earpiece. It was the UE.
That is awesome.
That was the one. That was the one we should have went after.
Yep.
You guys invented Bluetooth and self-checkout. I'm so impressed. I really wish you would have gone on Shark Tank or something. I mean, I feel sad that your great
Invented
idea
it
got
here,
cut
right
off.
here. Yeah.
And we
That was it.
invented it up here, but we had no
Never
money.
left.
Yeah, we had no money. So, or any idea on how to do this. So when Amazon came up with, this system, you go into a store, they're still trying to figure it out. With all these cameras, it scans, you don't have to pay, or you pay as you come in and you leave without actually physically going to a cashier. So fast forward a lot of years, and we were really of the mindset of, the way officials learn, the way we learn has not changed in 60 years, 50, 60, 70 years. We break it down to 2 things. It's where you live and who you know. That's how you learn. And we thought that was so antiquated, and there had to be a better way based on the fact that we're doing this call. Brandon's in Phoenix, Sony is in Orlando, I'm in Chicago, Dana, you're in Indianapolis, Indiana, somewhere in that area, Kane's in New Jersey. We're all over the place and we're doing this call, right? So how is it that we can't use the technology and leverage it to help referees get better? And so we came up with this idea. As a matter of fact, I think it was Kane's kids who came up with the name Ref Masters. It just kind of made sense to us. Like, yeah, we want to have this platform that allows referees to connect, to communicate, to learn, and develop their skills no matter where they are, no matter how much time they have, where they can have access to constant training. And that's what we came up with Ref Masters. We've been fortunate to have Sony at the helm. The last 2 years, that's really allowed us to really get some growth because he's steering the ship now as the CEO and co-founder. So it's because of him and people like Sean Price, who's not on this call, that are really, really the keys to making Ref Masters this household name. And we're excited about the future.
And it's funny, you were talking about being in the car for hours and hours and coming up with these ideas. I will tell you, Nate and I spent hundreds of hours in the car together when we were working at the New Mexico Activities Association. And I don't know if any of our ideas were that good. I mean, we mostly just quizzed each other on our knowledge of whatever music was on the radio. But we had some ideas, but we didn't invent anything. So I'm kind of, we were way behind, Nate. I don't know what's wrong with that.
Well, honestly, had we had a mic and a camera, during those road trips, that might have been its own podcast.
It could have been.
So
Yeah.
Or at least something funny on TikTok. I don't know, but
yeah.
I'm inspired now to take a road trip and invent something great. So this is kind of for all of you. Who really is the primary target audience for the Ref Masters platform? And why did each of you feel like it was really important for professional officials to be involved in being a part of all of it?
I could take the latter piece. I guess in a way, when James and I first started talking about it, we talked about there's got to be a better way to educate. But also, we were so blessed with all the people that we've had along the way that have taught us with no return. There was nothing in it for them. So we really wanted to be able to give back first and foremost. We were fortunate that we had people locally, like James talked about, that we knew, my father and a bunch of pro refs that were, in the New York, New Jersey area that I got to connect with. There's so many referees out there that don't have the ability to connect with an official that has that level of knowledge. And so we wanted to bring that high level education, that connection, that mentor-mentee relationship to anyone that wanted to search for it and reach out for it. And through the tech is kind of how we manage that. And we thought it would be best to have pro level officials, high level D1 officials, really the best of the best, people that do this for a living, between the pros and your major Division I referees. A lot of them, they maybe have something else on the side, but that's their main form of income. So it's their craft. It's what they do to provide for their family. So these are the people that put the most time into it and have the most knowledge about it. So that's why we want the best of the best. James, what do we want to be?
Harvard of officiating.
Yeah, put him on the spot. He nailed it. There you go.
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
it.
just maybe to add into that, and Brandon, I think, has a really good lens on this. He just did a session yesterday as part of a Ref Masters University program. We do these film sessions in every sport a couple of times a month. He did a session yesterday on pregame and first play, having a next play mindset. And in that session, it was him, and we had a number of folks in our university program just in a roundtable conversation. The span of experience level, it's very wide. We had folks, Brandon, right? You can talk about it a little bit more. And that's what's so great, because you've got some folks that are working high school, you got some folks that are working lower level college, higher level college. And it's not just learning from the Brandons of the world, which is, of course, phenomenal, but it's also the peer to peer opportunity. It's learning from a community of officials as well. But yeah, Brandon, I think you've got a really good lens at how you think about the whole gamut of experience, right?
Yeah, on that call, I think we had one person who actually has not even officiated a real game yet. And that's how those people are out there. And what's great about Ref Masters is the technology allows us to truly kind of scale the program and meet officials where they are. So that happens in many ways, right? Everybody's on their phone now. Well, Ref Masters can be in your pocket, on your phone. And as Sony always talks about, if you're, waiting for an Uber or you're in an Uber or whatever you're doing and you have a minute or 5 minutes, Ref Masters is right there for you.
That's amazing.
The way that we approach the audience, I think is genius. And I've learned this really from James mostly, but also Kane and then our baseball umpires. And it's really just generating discussion. Anybody can stand up and lecture. Who wants that? I mean, you find that anywhere. As Sony said, we're leveraging the power of community at Ref Masters to bring everybody up together. And look, somebody in the platform will say something that it's not right. It's not right, whatever right is. And somebody else will come in and very professionally engage them in a kind of a corrective way, but it's not demeaning. It's very positive and productive. And that has nothing to do with, by the way, the 90% of people on the platform that don't even actually type answers in. They're just there lurking like everybody does on social platforms. So people are learning by this community effect. And yeah, that was in showcase in our recent session when we did that with a person who's never officiated, and then we had several high-level college officials and Sony. Sony, you weren't the one that never officiated, by the way. That's not who I was talking about, but you were there. I just really think that this technology allows us to scale this educational component of officiating that's never been done before. And it scales not only across all experience levels, but across, every situation somebody's in. And that's really powerful. And I think it accomplishes just part of the vision that James and Kane had perhaps discussed right after they invented Bluetooth, which, are we really giving them credit for inventing it? I'm not.
I am.
Nope.
I think the thing is, I'm listening to all of you speak about this. You keep talking about community, and that was I think every one of you said that word at some point in your answers. And as Nate and I have had a lot of conversations over the years and on this podcast, that sense of community and belonging is huge, because we talk all the time about the retention of officials, and really how part of why we don't retain them is a lack of mentorship and a lack of feeling like they belong, coming into something where there's this group of people who have done it for 30 years and they're brand new, and they come in and they feel a little bit lost. So I love the fact that you've kind of talked a lot about that community element, and Nate and I talk about officiating family all the time, and that's all synonymous. And I think it's cool that so much of the premise of what you're doing is built around that concept and that welcoming in. And if somebody says something that isn't correct, having them gently told that this is actually how it's done, instead of it being something where it's embarrassing or they're kind of, dressed down in front of a local association or something. So I really appreciate that element of it.
Yeah, it's huge, right? Because, we say all the time at Ref Masters, if you look at where sports are today, these athletes, these young women, these young men, these people are getting so good so fast because they have access to training, right? Their parents are spending the money to get them coaching outside of, what they may get from a varsity sport at a school. So these young folks are constantly learning their craft, whether it's hockey, soccer, football, baseball, basketball, hockey. It doesn't matter what sport they play. Lacrosse is big now, volleyball. So essentially what you find is that the level of play is up here, even at the amateur level. And the level of officiating is below it because we don't have access to training that the players are getting. And so it's almost like you take someone who they have basic math skills and you throw them into a geometry class. It's got to be hard for them to understand, sine and cosine and all of these other things that they just learned 2 + 2 = 4. You can't expect them to know right angles and Pythagorean theorems and all of these things. You just can't. But that's what we do. And so people get frustrated and they end up leaving because they're thrown into something where they haven't been given the necessary tools to be successful. And so we're trying to bridge that knowledge gap. We're trying to bridge that empathy gap. We talk about that all the time at Ref Masters, so that when they get out there on the field, on the pitch, on the ice, they're prepared and they're ready, and they have this really supportive community when they go through something that people can help encourage them. Oh yeah, I've made that. I've done that. This is how I responded to that. And it allows them to have some grace, and it allows them to realize, okay, I'm not in this alone, this journey, so that hopefully they stick around for 15, 20, 30 years, and that everybody can be, the games can be better served because we don't have all this turnover where you have new people that you're just trying to just throw out there because you need some bodies.
All of you have mentioned kind of things that you have done and all sounds amazing, but if each of you had something that you're just, most proud of, up to date, so that one thing that's just you really feel good about, what would that be? And maybe Kane, we could start with you on this one.
The last time I was home, I got to referee with my 17-year-old daughter and my 15-year-old son. So that's probably, it was a cool moment to see them. My dad was there too, so kind of all 4 of us in there, and the goal to get him is to get him to get my father to work, referee with his grandkids too. So I think that's probably my most proud moment of all the other stuff is, I don't know, it's individual success, but I think passing it forward. And my son walked away from a Saturday morning and made $80, and like the look on his face as a 15-year-old was, he's like, he couldn't, just could, he's got like, $400 in his room now stuffed in a jar from refereeing. So, you could see the light bulb turning, like, oh man, I can't make $20 an hour anywhere else as a 15-year-old. So
I have to know how many fans out there yelled at you like you were a first-time official.
Fortunate for me where we are, that
people know who you are.
Well, not even that, just where we live in Florida, I'll have to give credit to the people. They're pretty respectful. I've been to a lot of games now watching my kids play, and for the most part the parents just watch. Now they play, they cheer their kids. A couple comments here and there, but I've even heard like fans when I'm sitting there, because I don't really tell anybody what I'm doing, what I do. And for the people who don't know me, for the people who know me, respect me enough to not tell anybody else. So it's kind of kept quiet. But I'll hear other fans and other parents say, hey, like, just let them, it's 8th grade game, let them play, don't, leave the refs alone. So we're fortunate because I see horror stories online, and even when I started refereeing, it was in Jersey was rough, but I learned a lot. So eventually I'll have to take them somewhere where they're going to get tested. But right now their parents and everybody, the coaches are really good, and they treat them well.
Sony, up to date, with Ref Masters, what's one of the biggest accomplishments that you guys have?
Yeah, it's an accomplishment to me every day to see people coming back to the platform. I don't say that in a trite kind of way. It's amazing to me. We've got people in over 50 countries around the world, and I look at this list and I'm like, there's someone in North Macedonia that's in the Ref Masters platform, like watching stuff about officiating. That's just really, really cool to me. But maybe the tip of the spear is when we take a virtual experience like the app and we bring it into a camp, an in-person camp experience. So when we did our first camp last year, We did a basketball camp late in the summer. And the first day of camp was the day when, what was that outage that happened? The servers, what was it called? CrowdStrike, or what was it called? Yeah. So that was the day that happened. That was the first day of camp. And those of you that have been part of coordinating a camp know there's a lot of work that goes into it. You do all the contingencies, but one contingency you don't plan for is that half of the air flights in the United States will cease and you'll just have to change everything the first day of camp. That's not something you would expect. So there was a lot of scrambling going on in this first day, and this was our first camp, and we were really worried, right, that we're not going to deliver this great experience. Not only was it a great experience, but something that I was so proud of was the effort that our members took to get to camp. We had multiple people from Canada carpooling, reaching out to each other saying, "Hey, I'm getting a car. Let's drive down from Ontario and let's get to camp." Getting to camp the next day. We had one gentleman, he was also from Canada. Camp started Friday morning. He ended up getting there Saturday night, even though the camp ended on Sunday, just because he wanted to be there. He was hearing from other people about how awesome it was, and he took the effort to get there. And what made that camp awesome, just to be really clear, it definitely wasn't me, because I'm just a guy with hair and, kind of helping out. And it wasn't even James and Kane, as great as they are. What made the camp really awesome, going back to the community part, was the people that attended the camp. That is just something I'm so proud of. Again, don't say this in a trite way. I'm so proud just to be part of a group of people, a community that are really looking out for the right things. And that's what fuels us every day. We say feedback is our fuel at Ref Masters. So hearing and seeing those things is really just what keeps us going.
Yeah, talk about that. I mean, I was scheduled to go to our staff development, for Violet Palmer, and man, talk about scrambling. And we were dropping. I mean, obviously we have to get there, so you're dropping a little extra money, or you're figuring it out. But there were a lot of people that were scrambling. But even so, even if we weren't required to get there, just as officials, I think that's what we do. We find a way, we figure it out, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts. We want to be there. We want that training, so we're gonna find a way. That's awesome, Brandon.
Yeah, no, I've had these stories too, and I think officiating, there's something about officiating that always brings us back. And it's the energy that we feel, it's the connection, the community. I've seen this too. We had a camp once, and we're in New Orleans in May. Well, at any time you're in New Orleans, you can get completely washed out, and we pretty much got completely washed out. So we had local people stepping up to find artificial turf fields, field turf, right? Because the grass fields were underwater and muddy. And at this point, we had about 75 officials at the camp. And, in society now, we really like to complain and get negative. Well, guess what? Nobody, at least to our face, maybe behind our back they were, but at least to our face, nobody was complaining because the schedule, just like schedule's all messed up. Maybe a reduction in the number of snaps. It's very hard to officiate spring football in a downpour when coaches are worried about their players getting injured. So we had to find new fields. We had to beg teams to shift their workouts and scrimmages to these new fields, not even their own schools. Why would they do that? Well, coach, we're trying to put on a learning opportunity for up and coming officials. Oh, okay, yeah, we're in. I mean, it's the power of sports. It's the power of community. We all keep coming back. I'm sure it happens. I'm sure there's games that happen where officials don't show up, but that's got to be few and far in between. We always are there, and we go to great lengths to do that. And I was talking to, so when I was in college, I got to go officiate Hawaii, the University of Hawaii. I was there 3 times. And, the time zone changes. And so you wake up at like 3 a.m. And one of my favorite things to do is I'd go out to the beach, and there would be lines of people with surfboards in their hands. Now, I don't know about you, but my interpretation of a surfer, the surfer bum, maybe not too motivated in life to accomplish high things, but guess what? They're always there at 4 or 5 a.m. to catch the wave. And I was like, you know what? That's what officiating is. We always show up to work the game, to run the game. And from that day forward, when I was so inspired by the surfers, like that's why these games go on without a hitch. The officiating community always shows up. We travel across, around storms. We carpool. We offer official the shirt off our back if they need it. I think it's really, really an awesome attribute of what we're involved in.
That's a great story with catching the wave. Like that gave me goosebumps because it's so true. You just see the lengths that officials go to, and knowing the inclement weather they have to travel through, and for the outdoor sports that they have to work in sometimes. The basketball and volleyball people probably have it right because they don't have to worry about getting rained on. They might have a struggle getting to the game, but once they're in the gym, they're all right. But I think that people don't understand how that's a professional pride point for officials, is the fact that no matter what, it's like the U.S. Postal Service, rain, snow, sleet, you're going to be there. And I think that that's pretty special. Not a lot of people are that dedicated and in that extreme of a way. So the catching the wave, I'm gonna think about that one for a while.
Working football in Hawaii, no weather issues. It was all okay there.
Absolutely not. James, what's one of your proud Ref Master moments?
I would say one of the things we're really passionate about, and this Kane mentioned this, is we are passionate about teaching. We're passionate about the craft because so many people poured into us. And who we don't have on this call because they are doing their day jobs right now is Brennan Miller and Malachi Moore, who help and who run Ref Masters Baseball. One of the things I'm really proud about that we're doing is our goal is we're trying to literally change the culture of sports officiating. In the sense of learning should be something that is continuous. It should always be ongoing. I can't tell you how many people have asked me through the course of years, did you go to school to be a referee? There is no school for refereeing yet. We're creating that school, right? That is what Ref Masters University is all about. It is about, our vision is that down the road, if you want to learn how to referee football or hockey or lacrosse, you're going to spend your time and energy at Ref Masters University. That is going to be the premier place to go to learn the craft and how to be a good soccer referee or how to be a good baseball umpire. And so for me, excuse me, the thing that I really get excited about with Ref Masters is seeing the feedback from the community. They are learning and they're growing and they're getting better. That's the whole point of what we do every day. They want to get better. And I want to highlight a young man named Ryan Young, who's in our app, who's in Las Vegas, Nevada. Ryan is constantly there. You can tell he wants to get better. And as a result of not taking all the credit for his success, certainly not doing that, but he made a point to reach out to Kane and myself and Sony, like, listen, because I'm, have been involved with this Ref Masters community, I want you to know I feel way more confident when I walk out onto the floor now. I have an idea of what I should be doing out on that floor. And as a result of him being involved with Ref Masters University, this was the first year this year that he got assigned to a playoff game, right, for high school basketball. And not only did he get assigned a game, he got assigned the championship game. And he was so excited about that progress that he had to share it with us. And we were honored that he took the time to do that. That's what I'm most proud of, is that you can see the fruits of the labor having a tangible effect. People are getting better. They're learning. They're growing. The games are better when the refs are better. I say that all the time. When the referees are well-versed at what they should be doing on that playing surface, whatever their surface is, everybody benefits, players, coaches, and fans. And that is what really, really excites me when we see people are growing, people are learning, and it's having a really positive impact on their officiating careers.
Hey, real quick before we go, just because there's so much information and I want our listeners to kind of have some information from you all. Sony, what is the access to Ref Masters? How do we get our listeners to the app? or to the program?
Ref Masters is available for anyone around the world on desktop at refmasters.app or for Android and iPhone users in those respective Google Play and Apple stores. Free to download. Creating a profile takes maybe 1 minute. You could use your pre-existing credentials to create an account, get set up. And we have discussion right now in basketball, baseball, and football. We're adding other sports. We're in the process actively of doing that. And discussion there is free. And James and Brandon and Kane and our friends over on the baseball side, Malachi Moore and Brennan Miller, both MLB umpires, they're leading discussion in the app, in our free space in the app every single day. We also have a premium program called Ref Masters University. That's for folks that want to go further. We've got some associations that also scholarship members of their group to Ref Masters University. So that is a $30 a month for individuals. And then we've got some associations that do bulk discounts for their members. And that's where you get our multiple film sessions every month. You get the recordings, you get post-session quizzes. And then ultimately, our students at the Ref Masters University, they earn badges. These are certificates of accomplishment that they earn every semester. And they actually show up on their profile as a badge. So when you click on someone's Ref Masters resume, that's what we like to call someone's profile, you can actually see the investment that they've made in their own development, which is great not just for other officials in the community, but also really great for assigners.
Sure, and that actually kind of sets up the next question. And we've talked about this a little bit, but I want to really kind of drill down on it. So how important is education and the retention of officials? And how does Ref Masters help to educate and retain and really kind of preserve the overall health of the officiating community? I don't know who wants to take that one.
I'll start. I think it's obviously it's very important. I don't think you can just read a rule book or a mechanics manual and immediately learn everything you need to know about officiating. I can't. Maybe you all can. I know that I cannot do that. I've got to talk it out. I've got to see it in action. I've got to see video. I've got to be on the field. I've got to get advice from people who know more than me. I've got to share my own ideas, put things in my own words, hear James put it in his own words or how Kane thinks about it. And that's what Ref Masters is doing. So I call it language of the game. And officiating is kind of its own game, certainly. We could talk about how we communicate with players and coaches. That's another whole language in and of itself, and especially how they communicate to us at times. But what's awesome about Ref Masters is if we're talking about concepts in whatever sport we're in, you could almost, and in this day and age, you could probably put an AI to work and have them, pull out this language model that is just inherent in how we speak. There's a lot of repetitive words that are used. And so if we can educate people more on language of the game, how to put the rules in their own words, how do we be more consistently when we talk about a concept? That's what Ref Masters is doing. At least that's what I see it doing. And when I see the folks contributing in the football space, and there's a lot of repeat contributors, but then all of a sudden there's these new people and you see them say something and then a week or two later, they say it a different way. And I think that's really cool to see how things evolve just as we build community. Back in the day, you would want to go out to, the field or the local meeting and you could accomplish this. And hopefully we still are doing that, by the way. But today, just pull that app up on your phone if you have 5 minutes, and that can be like we can work that language of the game muscle repeatedly, and that's gonna continuously improve our rules knowledge and our mechanics knowledge. Because if we're all talking about it the same way, then there's just no chance that we're not improving the craft as a whole. So that's how I see Ref Masters contributing to that continuous education.
Great answer.
Just to add into that too, we all have been talking today, and I've listened to a lot of other episodes of the A to Z podcast, right? There's an officiating shortage, right? We know there's a gap when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to connection, when it comes to empathy between officials and spectators, players, coaches, etc. Ref Masters is not the solution to solve all of that. We're trying to be contributing to that solution. there are a lot of other people that are doing amazing work, right? Dana, we've talked before, NFHS, right? You're doing incredible stuff in terms of educating, in terms of providing associations and officials and leaders with the materials that they need. So we're also just trying to play our role in all of this. It's not about the education that James and Brandon and Kane and our MLB folks, Malachi and Brennan do. There's so much great teaching out there. We just want to be a platform where that can happen, because it's not just about the teaching part, it's about the social part of learning. And so that's what we're trying to do. And we think we've got a role to play in supporting the educational efforts from leaders in the officiating space that are already here. We can't, nor should we, or do we want to, try to teach every single official out there. But we do think that there is a role for us to play in supporting all of those teaching efforts. So, I just mentioned NFHS. We all know NASO, right? They do phenomenal work, right? There's organizations out there, so many. Some of them focus just on one sport. Some of them focus more broadly across all team sports. But yeah, our role is really just supporting all of that work. And, for our technology from the community we're building, and yes, do the education that we provide. That's our role to play, I think.
That's great, because I think through season 1 and now into season 2, I mean, nobody's competing. We all have the same mission. We all have the same goal, and we're all just trying to improve officiating, whatever that looks like. And you're right. Sometimes, somebody might go to RefMasters or to another platform, but I think the number one goal is really to give the education and support to our officials in that. And so I applaud that, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Thanks for saying that, Nate. And real quick, there's a book from Simon Sinek called The Infinite Game. And the RefMasters team is tired of me talking about it so much. But I really think of it as an infinite game. In the sports officiating landscape, it's not that there's a winner or a loser, right? The game, in fact, that's part of our slogan at RefMasters. We say run the game, right? Because the officials aren't competing to win the game. They're really working hard to make sure the game continues, right? But this idea of, like you said, we're not competing with each other. That is, I think, so key, because one of the challenges, I think, one of the issues in officiating education is that it's been siloed in the past. So you've got someone up in California that's teaching one way. You've got someone else in Illinois that's like, no, I teach it this way, right? And what we find is that when there's inconsistent standards, that leads to inconsistent performance. Inconsistent performance leads to lower performance. Lower performance leads to less pay. It leads to, all of the less of the things that we need to recruit and retain more officials. So we don't think it's like, hey, here's the RefMasters way. It needs to be like that. We think our platform is a great way to bring people together so that we can start to have, more aligned standards when we think about how to educate officials and how officials should perform. So I'm so glad that you said that.
It's really important. And I'm going to piggyback on what Sony said and add one more piece, that what we're doing at RefMasters is with the technology. One of the benefits that we have of our platform is that if you have an association in Houston, Texas, you've got 100 referees in your high school association, you can piggyback off of our technology for your association to help train and teach them. And oh, by the way, it's free. And so we're trying to make it so that there is one platform where people can go and get access. You don't have to, if your association, spend tens and tens of thousands of dollars developing your own app. You can do that with RefMasters. We can help you set that up so that you can constantly touch your people, right? And the only way you're going to get better is if someone is constantly pouring into you. And the easier you make it, the more convenient you make it, the more likely you're going to get participation from those referees. They can see what you're posting as an assigner, and whatever language you put, this is how we should referee this play. You've touched all 100 folks in an instant. And so we find that by having this technology, it allows you to touch them more often, rather than you have one meeting at the beginning of the year and when you meet collectively as a group, and that's kind of it. Or you may have a meeting once a month as an association. We make it so that you can touch them as often as you want through the app. It's super easy for you to set up your association. We can help you with that. We're just trying to find ways to make it easy to learn, fun to learn, but more importantly, to give you access to people, your signers easily. But if you're a second year high school referee and you can get on an app and listen to what Brandon Cruse is talking about, like I'll go on the football side and the baseball side. I have no idea what they're talking about because I'm not a baseball umpire. I'm not a football referee, but I read this stuff and I'm like, if this is your second year, you just did JV, think about how immensely important that is to your growth. So we're just trying to really bring this technology, not just to the officials themselves, but it's also for the associations to be able to use at their leisure to help reach their people.
Awesome. You talk about associations and growth and everything. For the three officials, and I'm going to follow it up with Sony because I want to see I want to hear some outside perspective. But what piece of advice would you give officials at the youth and high school level about the importance of being educated in rules, mechanics throughout their careers, and not when they are just starting out? In other words, why should officials pursue continuing education? Kane, you want to go? I keep starting with Kane because he has these long pauses.
No, actually, why don't you go? Are you going to end with Sony? Oh, I thought you said you were going to start with Sony.
Yeah, I'm going to end with Sony. Yeah, I'm going to go outside perspective to close that question.
Actually, let's switch it up. Let's let James go, and I'm going to piggyback off him on this one.
Well, if you're not constantly learning, then you're not growing. I've 15 years in the NBA and I'm still learning stuff. It never stops. And the only way to constantly grow and get better is you must continue to work on your game. That's what players do, right? If basketball just ended, right? We just crowned UConn for the women, Florida for the men. For basketball, I highly doubt those athletes won't pick up another basketball until October, November, right? That's not the way this works. They're probably already back in the gym, back in the lab, figuring out what they need to do to get better for next season. It's the same for us. I'm going to get on my soapbox a little, just for a second. But one of the things that drives me crazy about sports officials is we think we got all the answers because we've been around a long time. I don't have all the answers. I ask Kane, I ask people like Josh, Sean Wright, people on our staff. I'm constantly saying, hey, how would you handle this situation? We had this play. Tell me how you see this. That is how we grow. And if you are not willing to do that exercise, you cannot and you will not get better. And so that to me is, if you want to get better at it, you don't stop learning. You stop learning when you decide, okay, I've had enough. I'm hanging up the whistle. I'm done. That's when you stop. Until then, constantly figure out a way to get better. It's vital. It's vitally important.
Brandon, any thoughts?
Yeah, I transitioning into the NFL, I thought I was pretty hot stuff and had a pretty good college career just through good luck, really. Nothing that I did other than just go to the assignments that they gave me. But you get to a new level, the highest level in the world, and you immediately realize how much more you have to learn. And if we're honest with ourselves, that really happens at every level. And it's not about levels. I don't want to even make it about levels. That's just a personal experience for me. I knew how much work I had to put in once I started in the NFL is my whole point. But really, this happens, I think, to most officials, if they're honest with themselves. You start out and the game's a blur. And then like you're 2, 3, maybe 4, you think you've got this thing figured out. Like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Like at football, a 3 and 4 year football official is dangerous. They know enough to be dangerous. We are slinging flags everywhere. We see everything and we're calling it. We don't have that threshold developed yet, right? So we just call everything because we know so much. And then something happens, year 5, 6, and 7. My gosh, wow, maybe humbled. Maybe there's a train wreck that you're the cause of or involved. And you realize how much more you have to learn. Well, that whole cycle of 1 through 7 actually repeats itself over and over in an officiating career. It's just that the what would I say, the duration of the cycle gets shorter and shorter and shorter, but only if you have that important growth mindset, So that's exactly what, you're hitting on, Nate, which is, why is it important? Well, because if you don't let that cycle happen, then you're going to be that official, unfortunately, who has 1 year of experience 20 times versus allowing that cycle to go and go and go. And that's your improvement cycle. Only through growth mindset, only through reaching out to people like James and Kane and Malachi and Brennan and thousands of other officials, not just pros, but, the people in your area, whatever. That's how you execute on that cycle. Maintain the growth mindset, allow that cycle to happen. If you're a 3-year football official, just take a step back. Maybe don't throw that exact flag every single time that we all do as 3 and 4-year officials. It's just so funny how that always happens. So that's why I think it's important, Nate. We got to let that cycle happen, and the growth mindset is really the foundation for that to happen.
Hey, Brandon, you know how you've made it. I know how Dana's over there with her pen, just going to town on her notepad. So
Was
I'm watching Dana, and she's on fire. Her pen is working, and
I
so
was trying to be smooth about it, but I guess I wasn't very smooth.
oh
That's
no,
right.
I've been her assistant long enough that But outside perspective, Sony, what are what are you starting to see, as you kind of go through this process?
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's a great question. And I don't say that, when people say it's a great question because I need time to answer it. I mean, you've given me like 10 minutes to think about it. So it's not a haphazard compliment. It makes me think about, why is it worth continuing education in anything? I think the answer to this question we could ask about, why is it important to continue learning in our lives, right? And that makes me think about, and I'll try not to get too academic here, but the Germans have a concept called Bildung. Bildung. And it's a concept of continuing education, refinement of the individual. And the idea in the German tradition of Bildung, and it's represented in their literature, is to continue this process of self-discovery, of maturation. So there's the whole coming of age story. We like movies and books that are about coming of age, right? It's this concept of Bildung. But coming of age and continuing that growth and maturation, it doesn't end at 18 or 20 or 30 or when you have your first kid or when your parents are no more. It continues on and on through life. So yeah, my answer to this is, why is it worth continuing to learn anything? And I think the answer is because it's part of our own story. We all see ourselves as the center of the story, our life. And if we don't learn, we're not telling a good story, right? We're losing that opportunity to mature and to transform and to continue to evolve as people. And maybe one of the challenges is that sometimes in officiating, it doesn't happen as much as it could. Well, those are the things we're all working on together. We're trying to make great education so it's easier. We're trying to bring community so that people are connected when they do it. We're trying to make better conditions so that people are motivated to keep going, right? So that's our job. All of us on this call is to create those conditions where people are motivated to do it. I don't think we can admonish people for not doing it, right? If they're not doing it, there is a reason why. And the last thing I'll say is, in my background in education, one thing I used to really bother me is what I call blaming the students. Administrators, teachers, they blame the students. The students don't pay enough attention. They aren't motivated enough. They don't know what they need to know, right? But I don't think blaming the students gets us very far. If a challenge is that we're not educating continually enough, have we created the conditions for it? That's the challenge I would pose for all of us. It's the question we ask every day. Dana, I know for a fact it's something that you think about a lot because we've talked before about this. And I guess that's just the rallying cry on my end.
Absolutely. Those were some incredibly good answers. I took notes throughout most of that, just so you know. I learned some German. I mean, there's a lot going. There are a lot of layers there, Sony. I appreciate that, and Brandon, great responses. James as well. So Kane, I'm circling back to you because you haven't answered yet. So now we're putting you on the spot. What are your thoughts?
I'm ready.
All right.
So to continue your education, you have to be of the mindset that you need to learn something. And in order to do that, you have to humble yourself enough to think that you don't know everything there is to know. And I can't tell you how important that mindset is, having a humble mindset when it becomes to be, being an official. And just for all the people who want the next game, want the championship, want that next level, in order to get there, the people I've seen do it the fastest are the most humble referees, the most humble people. They come at it in a way that they're not arrogant. Confidence went on the floor, and I'm not talking about not having confidence. The confidence comes through your preparation and your education and all the hard work that you do off the court. But man, if you can remain humble and understand that this is something that you need to make a routine every year. You're in the rule book. You're learning from other people. You're watching your film. Those are the referees I see that just take off. Because they're constantly consuming and getting better, and anyone else who isn't doing the same thing, it's just math. Like, you can't keep up. If you have that humble approach to education, you are going to win.
Holy, so that answer was worth waiting for. That was really
That
good.
was very good.
That
It
was
was
pretty
very
Worth the
good.
wait.
And what he just said about, I'm sure, Nate, Brenda Pantoa. Kane and I came up with Brenda back in the day when we were all in the D League together. And we just had a call with Brenda about right after the women's Final Four, which she worked again this year. Shout out to Brenda. She's a phenomenal referee and even better person. So we were talking about her and how she can be a part and help with Ref Masters because she's very knowledgeable as a referee. And she said when we were talking to her, right, Sony, she goes, I got on the app, I downloaded the app, and then I just noticed that I would click on a play. We talk about flow and control all the time in Ref Masters, learning. What I know in my year 15 in the NBA, I did not know in year 1. So I see plays differently now, right? To Brandon's point about throwing that flag, you learn how to you learn like, oh, okay, that didn't have an impact on the play. So you can hold that flag, right? You don't know that your first couple of years. You're learning the craft. And so Brenda said she downloaded the app. She said, I would look at these plays, and then all of a sudden I would find like 3 hours later, I'm still looking at plays on the app. She goes down the rabbit hole of like, oh, this is a good one. Oh, this is a good one. Like, so Brenda Pantoa is a Final Four women's college referee. And because she loves the craft so much, she really pours herself into it. She's not working NC2A's biggest games of the years by chance. This is not by chance. It is because she is constantly working at her craft. So Sony's like, we always normally say, if you got 5 minutes, we don't think anybody has 3 hours like Brenda, but she became immersed in it. And that is because she loves the craft so much. And so because of that, because of her humility, because she wants to constantly learn, Brenda will be in the Final Four for years to come because she is that good. And the only reason why she's that good is because she works at it. She works at it. And if you're not willing to put the work in, you can't expect, to get those things that you want at the end of the day.
Yeah, I have to agree with all the things that you said about Brenda. She's just a master at what she does. And she's a gym rat. I know that she, in the last 2 years, showed up to the D2 regional tournament just to watch officials and sat in the corner, watched the game, and gave a little bit of feedback. So she's continuously, giving back as well. And I was fortunate enough to go to Tampa and watch her work. And so that was a good time. But man, great stuff.
Have you ever been on Wikipedia to like go look up something about Meryl Streep, and then like 4 hours
Yes.
later you're reading about like radon and magnesium or something,
Yes.
right?
It's the worst.
The rabbit hole.
And
That's the rabbit hole.
Usually what happens is I go down that rabbit hole and then I forget what I was actually looking up in the first place. I was like, what was I doing? Like I was going to build a grocery list, and 3 hours later I'm looking up, World War II. I don't understand how it even happens, but yes, it's dangerous. But I have to say, guys, the answers to that last question, that was like a kind of a little clinic in and of itself. Those were fantastic answers. I took a lot of notes, and I'm sure I'll go back through and take more after we air this. But we're at the tail end. I feel like the six of us could probably talk for another 10 hours about officiating, but we will let you get back to your days. But We have, and this is more letter E's, every episode of the From A to Zebra podcast, we have a mission to educate, elevate, and excite our listeners. So I want all of you to respond to this. What can you tell us about officiating that helps us to accomplish this mission?
I would say is exciting. I'm going to take that part of the E.
Love it.
You never know what you're going to get when you take the field, the ice, the floor, the court. You got the best seat in the house. If you're into sports, it's hard to beat other than playing. It's hard to beat the adrenaline you get when you're out there and you're going through, these games with your partners. It's a tough job, yes, but it's super rewarding. It's super fun. So I'm all about that. Every day is different. You have no idea what you're going to get when you walk out there. I guarantee you it's going to be something exciting. You're going to learn something that you didn't know before. And that for me is the fun part of this. This is not your typical office job, right? You're out there, you're in the midst of this competitive game between these two opponents. It's fun. It's fun.
All right, who's next?
Eeny, meeny. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I was talking to a group once, just very recently, and I said, I cannot believe we have a shortage of officials. I cannot believe this is a problem. And, a couple of them maybe reminded me that I'm a little different than most people. But anyways, I said, now remember, I had that vitamin S deficiency, no size, no speed, no strength. And then Nate let me know I was also subpar, so I appreciate it.
That was me.
But what do you remember from the great days of high school? I mean, class was terrible, go to class, kids, but, the tests, trying to find a college. But what about the bus rides? What about the locker room? Part of that was just so memorable in sports. And right away, I found that in officiating. And I said, man, if we could just bottle up how we feel, after we work the game, we prepare for the game, we work the game, and then we do whatever the post-game activities are, whether it's getting in a van and riding, 3 hours back home, or going out to a restaurant and, lining up the salt shakers and the napkin holders to, simulate a play that we just had. Those are the things you remember. And I said, man, I just don't know why there's such a shortage of officiating, because that is so much fun. And so when you think about, elevating yourself, you find the best version of yourself you find through officiating. And I've already talked about why it's exciting. Educationally, we've been talking about that as well. The process of growing and getting better is like inherent as a human. It feels so good to get better. You're better, this game than you were last game. You're better this season than you were last season. You're continuing to climb. So that would be my answer. It's just, if we could bottle this up and really, I guess, better explain it to people, there would never be a shortage, because it's that fun. That's what I think.
All right, Sony, Kane, you guys are up.
Okay, I'll go. The challenge, if you like a challenge, if you like something that's difficult, that you like to master things that are difficult, man, officiating is one of them. I mean, like James said, every time you walk on the court field, you're going to see new things, different things. It's things that you've never seen before, and you're going to have to figure out in real time how to handle it, and you're not going to do it right, especially early, and you're going to make mistakes. And if you're willing to pick yourself back up and learn and talk to other people and get better, it's so rewarding when you handle that situation right the next time, and you see how it affects the kids' game and how they have a great game because you refereed well and the play is good and it's competitive, and the parents appreciate it. Like there's so many rewards in officiating that people don't really understand. The piece that Brandon just spoke about, that locker room, the people you meet, you make lifelong friends. James and I met through refereeing. We've been friends for over 20 years. You'll just meet so many great people along the way, and you'll be able to create friends and just have that support when you need it. And that's one of the cool things that we're doing with Rec Masters. Is that's why we started with the community aspect, because we know one of the biggest reasons officials quit is because they don't have a support system, and they're not being taught well how to handle certain situations. And it's those confrontations, it's those fans, it's those coaches, it's the lack of support from their coworkers that really drive the reason we have a shortage. So we're trying to attack that part first, where there's a place for everyone to go, no matter where they live, no matter what country they're in. If they want some support on how to handle something, or just they had a tough game, they want to talk about it, like that's Ref Masters is where to go. We have over 3,600 people on the app right now that are there to share and talk about officiating. That's every sport. It doesn't have to be basketball or football or baseball. It's just a community. It is the place to be for referees to find support and make friends and find your group, find your niche. So I think it's a great time. I think officiating is going to make a comeback within the next 5 years. I see it. We already see it in certain areas. I think once that culture changes, and everybody on this call is helping to drive the change in the culture of officiating. I think that's going to be a huge piece to officiating making a comeback and being better than it's ever been because of the available education.
That.
We'll just talk maybe briefly about leadership, because what I've learned from officials, I've learned leadership from the others on this call today and all the officials in our community. I heard a quote recently: "You'll never meet a hater that's doing better than you." So for those of you that get some rough words from fans or players, whatever it might be, hold fast to that. You'll never meet a hater that's doing better than you. But being a great leader, and if you're listening to this today, you already are a leader, or you're in the process of becoming one because you're taking the time to want to digest conversations like this. I guess the encouragement that I'd give is create excellence in yourself, create conditions for excellence for those around you. Officiating, like life, is not about perfection. It's about the pursuit of excellence, and knowing the difference between those two is key, and something that I've learned from my partners here at Ref Masters. We don't officiate to be perfect, we officiate to be excellent. And it reminds me of the quote from John Steinbeck's novel, East of Eden. He says, "Now that you don't have to be perfect, you can be good." So I would like to remind all of us out there, now that we don't have to be perfect, we can be good.
This is why Sony's the CEO.
Holy smokes. That was like, dang.
At least 3 book references and 5 quotes per answer. How good is
Right?
that?
I'm like, that wasn't on my bingo card at all. That was impressive. Man,
Awesome stuff.
guys, thank you so much. This has been a great, over an hour, and it's just flown by. At least from our side of things, it's absolutely flown by. And I just want to thank you all. I know how busy you guys are, and just not only for being on the podcast, but for what you're doing in the educational community for officials and building that family and building that support for officials. But this has been amazing. I feel like I can go to work. We're closed tomorrow, so I could go to work on Monday and be better than I was today just because of the conversation with you guys. And I mean that wholeheartedly. It's been enriching and educational and fun, and I can't thank you enough. So thank you, Brandon Cruse, Sony Tiwari, Kane Fitzgerald, and James Williams for joining us. This has been a great show, and man, really good stuff. And Nate's right. I took a bunch of notes, and I'm excited to go back and reread those. So Nate, I'll let you say some words to the guests and close us out.
I just want to let you know, as you guys are closing up, I just became a member, just downloaded the app. I'm ready to go. And I probably, like Brenda, I maybe not quite as long as Brenda, but I might fall into the rabbit hole of watching these discussions and videos. And so, again, go and download the app. It was super easy. I did it in 2 minutes, and now I can go and it's looking like I can go through all these discussions and everything else. So guys, thank you and appreciate you. To our listeners, thank you for joining us from another From A to Zebra podcast. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and X for more information about the show. See you next time.
Be sure to hit that like button, follow, subscribe, and also catch From A to Zebra on Instagram at from_A_2_zebra, Facebook, From A to Zebra podcast, and on X at From A to Zebra.